I found out my daughter had sold my late wife's house 2 days before the closing. The problem was, I was still the legal owner, and she thought I would never find out. If that phone call had come 1 hour later, I would have lost the only place that still felt like home. Before I tell you what happened, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to Family Betrayal. Stories like mine remind people they're not alone. Also, the faces, photos, and scenes you see in this video are only there to help tell the story. They're not real people, just visual illustrations. My wife, Sarah, passed away after 34 years of marriage. Cancer took her slowly, but it never took her kindness. Every wall in that little blue house carried her fingerprints. She planted the roses. She painted the kitchen. She picked the swing on the front porch where we spent countless evenings watching sunsets. After the funeral, I could barely walk through the house without hearing her laugh in my mind. Our daughter, Emily, suddenly became very attentive. She brought groceries, called every day, and insisted she wanted to help me move forward. I believed every word because she was my little girl. Then she started saying the house was too big for me. Dad, you deserve something easier. Dad, think about retirement. Dad, this place is just memories. I always answered the same way. The memories are exactly why I'm staying. She would smile, but something about that smile never reached her eyes. A few months later, she offered to organize my paperwork because she said I looked overwhelmed. I let her. She handled tax documents, insurance letters, and even opened some of my mail. Looking back, that was the biggest mistake I ever made. One afternoon, I noticed several missing folders from my office. Emily laughed and said she'd scanned everything to keep it safe. I wanted to believe her. Then neighbors started acting strangely. One asked if I was excited about moving. Another congratulated me on selling the property. I laughed because I thought they had the wrong house. But deep down, fear quietly settled into my stomach. Why did everyone else seem to know something I didn't? And I had no idea that the answer was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about my own daughter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying those conversations in my head, trying to convince myself my neighbors had simply mixed me up with someone else. Around 9 the next morning, my phone rang. The woman on the line introduced herself as a title company employee. She politely asked if I would be arriving on time for Friday's closing because several documents still needed my signature. I froze. What closing? There was a long silence before she carefully repeated the property address. It was my house. When I told her I had never agreed to sell it, her voice changed immediately. She apologized, ended the call, and said someone from the company would contact me right away. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone. I drove straight to the title office. They looked just as confused as I was. The file showed that my daughter had been meeting with the real estate agent for weeks. She had presented herself as someone acting on my behalf. She even claimed I was too overwhelmed after losing my wife to handle the paperwork myself. Then they showed me a copy of a power of attorney. It had my name on it. It had my signature. But it wasn't mine. The room went completely silent as I stared at that piece of paper. Someone had forged my signature so convincingly that even I almost believed it for a second. The title officer immediately called their legal department. They stopped the closing before any money could be transferred. I sat there wondering one thing. How could my own daughter do this? On the drive home, I called Emily. She answered cheerfully. Hey, Dad. I asked one simple question. Did you try to sell your mother's house? There was a pause. Then she laughed. Dad, I was going to tell you. Going to tell me? She admitted she had already accepted an offer and said the buyers had fallen in love with the property. According to her, I would thank her later because she had already picked out a retirement community where I could live. She spoke as if my life was a business project. Not once did she ask how I felt. Not once did she apologize. Have you ever heard someone you love speak in a way that made them sound like a complete stranger? Because that's exactly what happened to me. When I told her the closing had been stopped, the confidence in her voice disappeared. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. Dad, you weren't supposed to find out until after the money cleared. I thought that was the worst thing she could possibly say. I was wrong. 5 minutes later, someone knocked on my front door, and everything became even worse. The knock came again, louder this time. When I opened the door, a middle-aged couple stood there holding a folder. They smiled, thinking I was packing to leave. My heart sank. They were the buyers. They had driven over because they wanted to measure the living room before moving day. I invited them inside and quietly explained that I had never agreed to sell the house. The smile disappeared from their faces. They looked shocked. then embarrassed. The husband opened his folder and showed me emails, contracts, and messages. Every conversation had been with Emily. She had convinced them everything was legitimate. Just then, Emily pulled into the driveway. The moment she saw the buyers talking to me, she knew the truth was out. She rushed inside, insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But the title company's attorney arrived minutes later with 2 investigators. They had already discovered the forged documents and frozen the transaction. Emily finally broke down. Between tears, she admitted she was drowning in debt. Bad investments, credit cards, and expensive habits had left her desperate. She believed selling the house would solve everything before I ever noticed. She kept saying she planned to take care of me later, as if stealing my home was somehow an act of love. I looked around the house Sarah and I had built together. Every room held a memory. Every picture on the wall reminded me that real love protects, it never takes. The sale was canceled permanently. The buyers eventually found another home, and they apologized for something that was never their fault. The investigators handled the forgery case, and Emily had to face the legal consequences of her own choices. I didn't celebrate. Watching your own child destroy the trust between you is its own kind of heartbreak. Months later, Emily wrote me a letter. For the first time, she accepted full responsibility without making excuses. I forgave her because carrying hate was destroying me too, but forgiveness didn't erase accountability. We slowly rebuilt a relationship, one honest conversation at a time, and only after she proved through her actions that she had changed. I still live in the blue house. Every morning I sit on the porch beside Sarah's roses. The wind still reminds me of her, and I finally understand that a home isn't valuable because of its price. It's valuable because of the love that was built inside it. If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you for listening. Here's what I learned. Never ignore your instincts. Never sign documents you don't fully understand. And never confuse love with blind trust. Sometimes the people closest to us can hurt us the most, but we still get to choose whether pain makes us bitter or wiser. What would you have done if your own child had betrayed you this way? Share your thoughts in the comments because I'd truly like to know. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to Family Betrayal. You never know whose story could change the way you see your own family. Some betrayals steal your peace. The strongest revenge is refusing to let them steal your future.